Hello and welcome to the Barbarian Investor Show. Today I'm joined by Malcolm Palais, who's chairman of Coinsilium, the blockchain venture builder. How are you today, Malcolm?
I'm fine, Zach. Thanks very much.
Right, we're speaking in the aftermath of one of the bigger events, many would agree, in the blockchain cryptocurrency area. Facebook announcing the launch of its own cryptocurrency. Tell us about that and how that affects Coinsilium.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we mentioned this in our AGM statement, which we put out on Monday as a point of reference, really, to give some context about what's going on in the industry. I don't think this is something that people can probably grasp the significance of at this stage, because there's not a whole heap of information out there that, or should I say, the information out there begs further questions. But for us, it was kind of a bit of a seminal moment when we saw this announcement and we saw everyone in the industry was digging into it and seeing what was going on. But ultimately, as we said in our AGM statement, you know, this creates awareness, which is the most important thing. The other thing not to be understated is the significance of their partners that they're actually working with, which is Vodafone, Visa, PayPal, Uber. I mean, these names are sort of massive. The good thing is that people recognise these names, know them, and it legitimises the fact that they are creating a cryptocurrency. It takes the focus off all the negative things that a lot of people in the market were perceiving was going on with cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology, and it's the seminal moment is the legitimisation. Now, why would that be important to Coinsilium? We're not just going to sort of sit there and bathe in reflected glory. Although, you know, I think that will come. But, you know, as meaningful actors in the space, we can see where the opportunities lie, or potentially could lie. I picked up a quote from one of the industry veterans, was mentioning that they believe that what this will open up in practical terms is the potential for Facebook to launch a sort of like an app store once the currency is out there. So the App Store will be for sort of smart contracts, and they'll be based on the Libra currency. So this is potentially a whole new industry coming about. Now, obviously, you look at Apple and then their app stores, which sort of gives developers the opportunity to create their own products and sell them on the Apple platform. Well, if you think about this as a whole new financial system, albeit sort of a micropayments but however it's going to work with Facebook's potential 2 billion plus users. And then there's developers coming on, developing solutions that really sort of fast track this technology. And a lot of things we probably won't realise are going to be relevant, but I sort of go back to, say, the internet. And when that came about, one of the earliest solutions, which was kind of the real, really taking advantage of the internet, was eBay. Because auctions became apparent that the internet can facilitate eBay in a way or auction houses in a way that couldn't possibly be done before. So we see, you know, some potential killer apps coming along from there, and that's the stuff we're looking at as a company. So that's why we see it's important, because we know the industry, we know the way it's going, and of course we've got to think about what's Google going to do. Are they going to sit there and let you know, Facebook take over the world? What the regulator's going to do? Well, that'll be an interesting one, but at least it's Facebook's lawyers who are paying for that, all that interaction. And I wouldn't, you know, the regulators have got to take this seriously now. It's a technology-led thing. And I think the banks as well, because this is clearly something that potentially threatens the banks. The banks have got to, we know they've been working on cryptocurrency solutions and blockchain, and they've tried to keep it sort of under control. JP Morgan launched a coin, very low key, but now they've got to come out in the open and talk about it. So this is why it's really important to us, and as players in the industry, we couldn't be more excited.
So this takes us in a way, we've got a proper platform here that Facebook are trying to develop.
They've set up sorry, Zach, they've set up a foundation in Switzerland, which is the way you do these things, because you want to sort of have it one step removed from a corporate entity that is controlling potentially a global currency. And that's fine, you know, they're structuring it as they should do. That's how that sort of works out. There'll be competitors. It's just one cryptocurrency, but it happens to have a big market. So, they're looking at it quite rightly. If I was Mr. Zuckerberg, I'd be saying, right, this is a land grab. I'm going to go and use all the clout I've got. But, there's some big players that are in there, and there's also some very big players that are not in there. So we see this as the technology taking over and leading this, which is why it's so exciting to us, because we look at it things from our part of the world, but you go to Southeast Asia and you see what's going on there, and there's another universe there. So
right.
It's how this plays out from now on, and this is why it's so exciting for us.
But the exciting part is the focus that Facebook's given to the whole space.
It's the
validation it's given as well.
Correct.
And presumably, Coinsilium's been going for 5 years, best part of 5 years. Before it was maybe regarded as being in a Wild West space. It's you don't quite know what the rules are, etc., etc. Now we have that. It's given you credibility as well.
I hope so. I mean, if it hasn't yet, I hope and believe it will do. But that's really just sparks off the interest in the stuff we can focus on and we're doing. Doesn't change our investment strategy. Doesn't change our approach to venture building. It just gives the market hopefully a better appreciation of where this sector's going, and hopefully where Coinsilium fits in, because industry likes us, they know us and they understand us and they see the achievements we've made. But retail investors scratch their heads certainly when they see a plethora of companies changing their names to put blockchain in it just so they can get a share price pump.
Right, and so you're invested in many different kinds of business within the space, and presumably the Facebook initiative will give that a boost, both in terms of profile and in terms of valuation, and that's already happening.
Well, I'd like to think that would happen as a byproduct. I don't think it affects our. We're not advisors to Facebook, but we are working with companies and we've invested in companies which could be very easily acquisition targets, and certainly teams that could be. And whilst that's a great thing to happen, but they're still focusing on their business. But it's the valuations of the companies within the business, which if we can turn to perhaps Endorse, which is one of the companies we invested in, and we invested at the seed stage, and we announced in a couple of weeks ago that they've had an onward investment from Times Group, which is the largest media house in India, at a valuation of $15 million, which was 350% more than we put in. Now, that's a blockchain-driven recruitment tech platform, which essentially helps firms or it creates efficiencies in their hiring process, and it's commercialized. In 2 years they've gone from concept to build the platform it's on the main net. They've generated revenues, and now they've also worked with sort of major corporates like Grab, which is a ride-hailing service in Southeast Asia, which is the equivalent to Uber over there. Grab wanted to recruit some artificial intelligence programmers, 50 of them, to sort of help them with the interaction of their app. And Endorse made that whole selection process extremely efficient, or is in the process of doing it, because the hackathon is only just completed. So that they get paid, revenues, and we expect those revenues to really be meaningful and take off. So whilst at the moment, Times of India have got in, they're providing them with a springboard to get into the Indian market through their media channels. What we can see is that this expansion, they'll be expanding globally. They'll be looking at, because the platform actually plugs into, at the moment, about 300 technical validators around the world. They get rewarded for validating people's skills. So if you're a coder, you send in a sample of your code. Anonymously, it's validated. The person who looks at it, it's like a peer review. And if that guy thinks this guy doesn't know what he's doing, he'll mark it 2, 1, whatever. He says, right, that's elegant code. That's going to work. Here's a 10. So they'll get out of 2,000, they'll whittle that down to 100 or whatever, maybe 50. Then they'll do the face-to-face interviews and all the other stuff. So they get a really much more efficient way of recruiting large teams. And with the tech explosion that's going on around the world, This is a really elegant solution. So now they're commercialising that, and they're charging companies fees that are reflective of what they are actually providing in terms of value and service. They're paying the validators a fee for doing it. So like an Uber driver, benefits from being part of that Uber network, and he can go out and do his work. These validators can get paid for sitting in front of their screen, validating code, doing what they enjoy, and making meaningful money out of it. This is kind of a secondary income, but possibly if people do it right, and it could become a primary income for a lot of people. So 15 million is not a huge amount of money for a valuation for a company that has got a potential of being a global industry and scalable.
Yeah.
I don't want to start getting ahead of myself, but we're a startup investor. I wouldn't want to look at any exits just yet. I think this has got a much, much higher valuation on it. And the beautiful thing about the sector is that because things happen so fast, you don't sit there waiting for ages for the things to happen. We expect to be announcing some really meaningful deals from them to actually demonstrate how that valuation works. And we want to find ways of actually enhancing that valuation as well. So that's the important thing for us.
But the endorse experience, let's say, that is showing, one of the main problems with blockchain as far as people investing in it or investing in vehicles associated with it was you've got a great new technology, but what are the practical applications? Other ways of making money out of it, and this is one of the ways, a practical way of doing that. Do you have any other investee companies which are in that kind of space, showing the practicalities or the practical uses?
All of the investments that we have made and are in the process of reviewing for new ones will always have to have that commercial application in mind, because that's the whole point of it. These aren't just sort of it's not performance art, it's not just like an exhibition of how elegant this technology is. There has to be a real commercial application. So
their business is just like any other?
Absolutely. They just happen to be focused on blockchain. Factum, for instance, is one of our sort of original investments. We own 1% of it. It was a very small company when it started. It's now doing some very significant things in the US. It's providing a kind of a way of mostly focused on the mortgages and finance market, that particular area of finance, but identifying title on the blockchain, which was a big problem after the global financial crisis with the collapse in the prices and valuations, and also with repossessions of properties. No one knew who owned the title. So this is a way of these collateralized debts and all the stuff you probably know a lot more about than me. But ultimately, if you can get a title to a property and that mortgage has been diced and sliced and chopped out and to hundreds of different people, you know who owns it. So that's a real.
So in a way, blockchain had been around before. The crisis may not have been as bad.
Well, if it was around before the crisis, I don't think it would have stopped the crisis happening. But that said, maybe if a lot of people were hedged into cryptocurrencies, it would have done. But or it would have given them a lifeboat. Yeah. But ultimately, when it came to who owned what in terms of the mortgages, that would have solved that whole problem, because you wouldn't have had repossessions for wrong repossessions. So.
Right. You invested in several companies, very exciting space, becoming more exciting by the day, as we've discussed.
Yeah.
The market cap around £4 million.
Yeah.
How should potential investors or people who are investing in the company gauge the valuation that you have? Because it is a bit of a, you mentioned 15 million for endorse.
Yeah.
But these things, they could have said 150, they could have said anything.
Yeah,
in the tech space, valuations and profits are totally unrelated, as we've seen from Uber and Slack and all these other companies. At the moment, clearly the market's not giving you the benefit of the doubt. No. How should they look at your companies?
Okay. Well, I think the other area, we have three sort of three bases. There's the investment, there's the advisory work we do, and there's the venture building. So the investments we sort of covered off and how exciting the portfolio is, and we haven't even touched on a lot of other companies in the portfolio because of the time we have available, but they're all on our website, and we'll be talking about them hopefully individually and going forward, and hopefully on this show, we'll be inviting some of the investees directly, so they can
Right.
talk about them. But we also have our advisory service, which is a revenue generative area of our business, which is predominantly based around helping companies with projects do token sales. Now, token sales were, or ICOs as they were previously known, a big factor about them was they help companies raise money to actually develop their proposition without dilution on the equity side of things. And the tokens are usually, in a sort of a regulatory area where they have to be defined very clearly as what we refer to as utility. So they can't be representing equity in any way. And we've advised a significant amount of very large token sales last year. And as we mentioned in our AGM statement and in our results, we generated meaningful revenues, 1.6 million, although because with a lot of it's quantified in cryptocurrencies, when the cryptocurrency price fell, it was like a currency risk. So, it prevented us from making a profit, which was kind of, unfortunately, at the beginning of 2018 to the end of 2018, that was the high and the end was the low.
Yeah.
So this year, with everything moving up, we're hopeful that our advisory division, which sort of had a bit of a hiatus from the end of last year till spring this year, is now starting to pick up momentum, and we've announced a new advisory client. But there's a new form of token sale which is much more efficient, which is not an ICO, it's an IEO, which is initial exchange offering, which effectively is the cryptocurrency exchanges will launch. They have a launch pad for launching new issues, new tokens on their platform, rather than the company, the project issuing the tokens, selling those tokens, and then going to look for a market, an exchange to list them on. They're automatically listed on day one. So it's much more efficient, gives the exchange a very good business model, an extra additional revenue stream for them, and an area that they're actually looking to expand on, gives investors or buyers of tokens much more comfort that they don't have to sit around and wait for the token to be listed, and also a higher level of governance and scrutiny on the project, because ultimately the exchange is taking responsibility for the token it's listing. So it doesn't want to list something that's...
So it's a much more formal process. It's
Correct,
more aligned
yeah,
to the normal stock exchange kind of process.
Exactly.
So it's a bit like ICO 2.0. It's a
exactly.
new
That's
generation,
exactly how
it's
it's... Yeah. And that we like for those very reasons, because it shows the market is maturing, and also it gives us more comfort. And as advisors, what Eddie Travier, our CEO, he is the main point of contact, and his team would meet people and talk to them about their potential initial exchange offering. And because we've done so much work in this space, in 2017-18, Eddie and the team were sort of advisors, or Eddie specifically was an advisor for a lot of the larger token sales that went on, and the companies that we were associated with in 2017-18 raised the equivalent of $500 million with Eddie as part of that advisory team. Now, some of these, the team members of some of the projects are coming out and doing their own token sales, and they're doing their own projects. One that we announced last month was Oasis Block, which is a new blockchain platform which is doing an IEO, initial exchange offering, and Eddie's the lead advisor on that. Now, they've chose Eddie because of his work with former companies, and he knows the space. He's introducing them to exchanges. We're helping them structure the sale itself, and we're also plugging them into all the players that they need to be plugged into, and the reputation that he's building for himself can't be understated. So what does this mean for Coinsilium? Well, we work on two prongs. We get a retainer. We don't start working with the company unless we're going to be sure that we're going to be paid, because ultimately when this industry started, a lot of people were doing it on success only. So when the token sale happens, you all get some money. Well, that's great. I mean, we're not really interested in actually going out, spending shareholders' money and doing these things, then finding out nothing came of it. Because
so there are some old school aspects to this area still.
Yeah, exactly. But we get a retainer which covers our cost. It's meaningful. It's proper professional prices. It's not, it's not huge amounts, but the details, the actual terms are always confidential between the parties, so we don't sort of talk about amounts. But in principle, the big money for us is on the success. So for a larger project, such as Oasis Block, which is raising up to 35 million, or that's what it's targeting. That's one area, and then we have others that we're looking at. But there's a success fee element to that as well. But it's justifiable because we will help all these companies along the way.
So my final question would be: would you regard Coinsilium as being a comprehensive play on the whole crypto blockchain space, or is it a uniquely comprehensive play? So if you're interested in, crypto, you're interested in blockchain, you're interested in whatever the new technology, the cutting edge of where we are, Coinsilium is the place to be.
Yeah, I think I would say what we don't do, we always look at things from a commercial point of view. So, Eddie's advisory work, we make sure we add value. We make sure that we're comfortable and confident with the companies we're working with. It's a win-win all round. We won't just do something because someone wants to pay us a lot of money for doing it because of the reputational issues that come with that approach. We also like transparency. We like to see that if we're investing in something, we can see where the whole process is going to pan out. So a lot of these investment opportunities, we know where we sit in that ecosystem in terms of the company, their investors and their stakeholders. But certain areas such as we've never really got involved in mining Bitcoin or mining cryptocurrencies because from our point of view, that's capital intensive. We don't want to, we don't have the skills in that area. And also, we kind of look at that as an area where you really need to be very close to what's going on because the transparency is an important thing. So, if there's a bunch of servers off somewhere in Siberia or whatever, and we don't know how much crypto they're sort of throwing off, we don't know exactly, what is being reported is actually what we need to see. But that's not to say that people who know what they're doing, are clearly capable of actually putting the right checks and balances in place to make sure that that's covered. It's a little bit like, diamond mining and gold mining. You need a lot of security around that to make sure that you're actually, what you're generating goes to the, to the right parties.
So you think basically you're in the best opportunities in the space rather than covering the whole space.
Correct. I mean, we are at the front end of it. We are, we will invest in an idea, like endorse at the idea stage, but we get the best possible return for that, and we hone our, we're very proud of our skills in actually being able to do that well. But equally, we've got to see the team is there, the team is capable of delivering, and the commercial potential of the investment is there. And on the advisory side, if we actually are going to spend our time, we're not just doing it for the retainer. The retainer covers our costs and gives us a little bit sort of a normal profit. But ultimately, we want to be absolutely confident that they've got every chance of taking that token sale, that IEO, and that working, so that we can actually share in the big payout, which is the success fee.
Malcolm Pally, Chairman of Coinsilium, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.
That's it for the Barbarian Investors Show today. Do join us again next time.